Let me start out by thanking everyone for posting their questions and making this video possible. Thank you. According to this person, his is $1 million question. What was Sonny Red told he was to get for taking out Galante? And here's $1 million answer. Most people are under the misconception as to how that life functions. It's not do this piece of work and you'll be rewarded with this, but more so, go get this done. Granted, there were guys in the Galante hit who were given positions afterwards, but that's a decision the boss or the family's administration makes, not an incentive. If the hit on Gaspipe was successful, do you think the Lucchese family would have went in a different direction? For starters, his position would have been filled before he was even called. I believe there would have been less murders ordered because Gaspipe caused a great deal of destruction within the family. But more crucially, he had too much influence over Vic. Overall, Vic would have still been indicted for the Windows case, as well as other murders. Do members of the administration have a list of all the members in their family? And if a guy gets promoted to the administration, can he get information on any member he wants? Keep in mind, I was never part of the administration, but there's typically a list of all the crews. And an administration member can find out whatever he wants about a certain member, and guys will be lining up to provide that information. I heard once that Vic crossed paths briefly with Gaspipe while being transported to or from a medical facility. I'm curious if you ever heard of that, and if it's true, how do you think it would have went down? I've never heard of it, and highly doubt it ever took place. If by chance their paths crossed during transit, I'm sure Vic would have been cursing gas and would have received the same from him. Did you have any dealings with Joey Celo? I met him in and around 2008 on a construction site where he was the shop steward. And that was my only dealing with him. In December 2023, Celo was convicted along with Anthony Romanello for an extortion conspiracy. How does a boss hide all the money that's getting kicked up to him? There are many methods to hide or rather wash money. How exactly a boss or bosses go about doing this, I have no idea. I would say with the help of a good accountant. Do you think John Gotti knew he was being recorded when he was talking in the apartment above the Ravenite? Absolutely not. He would have never entered the apartment had he known it was bugged, let alone talk about extremely incriminating conversations. Here's another Gotti-related question. If Jerry Lang already knew that after the holidays, Neil and John was going to be killed, did Paul go to a commission meeting and let this be known? Remember, Gotti was taped saying, "They don't think I know, but I know what's going on." In all honesty, I never heard any of this. If Jerry Lang made reference to Castellano's plan to kill his underboss and John Gotti, I find it hard to believe he spoke about it during a commission meeting. He doesn't need commission approval to conduct house cleaning in his own family. I just don't see Castellano telling the administration of another family his plans to hit members of his own family. Can a member or an associate personally hand money to a captain, and can a captain kick up directly to the administration? If law enforcement surveils money changing hands, could that be used in court to prove racketeering or criminal enterprise? A captain can accept money from a member, it happens all the time, as well as an associate, but in regard to associates, one's just not going to walk up to a captain and hand him money unless it's expected of him to do so. And the captain does kick up money to the administration. As far as surveillance of money changing hands, it could be used in court. I would think that some other corroborating evidence would be needed to support it. Here's a related question. Do captains have any idea how much the other captains in the family are kicking up? And how can the boss truly determine who's holding out and should be handing in more money? In most instances, one captain may know what other captains are kicking up. I've personally heard the amounts that certain captains were handing in. If by chance a captain's not kicking up the correct percentage of what he and his crew is earning, as the saying goes, it all comes out in the wash. What if Vic Arena and his loyalists won the Colombo War? Vic Arena would become the official boss, and whatever money was being sent to Carmine Persico would immediately cease. Did you ever have any interactions with Staten Island Banana captain Peter Lovaglio? I only met Pete one time, very quickly in the parking lot outside of the cigar lounge. I believe it was Joey Amato who introduced us, but I'm not 100% sure. Did you ever meet former Banano acting boss, Giuseppe Joe Bosch Bosco? I did. A member of the Gambino Sicilian faction introduced us, but not officially. If I'm not mistaken, I think at the time, Joe Bosch was on the shelf. From your experience, what was the reaction from made men to seeing their names in the media. Big John was someone who, if he or anyone else was mentioned, would bring it up. But out of everyone, Joe Perna seemed to take pride if he and his family was ever in an article, basically enjoying the spotlight. So the expression, birds of a feather flock together, come to mind. If a captain is taken down, how is the relationship or resentment when he has to answer to a guy who formerly answered to him? Is that person placed in a different crew, or does he remain in the same crew? There should be no animosity, as it's an administration decision, and typically the captain taken down will remain in the same crew. What is the best place you ate at in Little Italy? I normally didn't eat there, but I've been to Danico's, the food was good, and I mainly enjoyed eating in their courtyard. You once mentioned that Bubsy Castelli was placed in the Santarelli crew. How did he handle it? Did he complain about having to travel to the Bronx or Yonkers? How did he get along with Freddie Boy? Here's a fact. I tried my very best to limit my conversations with Bubsy, so I don't know if he had any issues with traveling to the Bronx. And as far as Freddie Boy's and his relationship, don't lose sight of the fact it's Brooklyn and Bronx guys you're speaking of, a surface relationship. So on the surface, they got along. In your opinion, why are unions on the decline in our country? For starters, the unions are not as powerful as they once were. Also, in certain industries, cheaper non-union workers are being used more and more. When you were in the life, did you ever hear of any Mafia associates from Rochester, New York, such as the Gingellos? I've never heard of them, but Salvatore Gingello was at one time the underboss in Rochester until he was killed by a car bomb on April 23, 1978. So it's possible that his relatives are still involved or associates in Rochester's organized crime. DeSantis does not seem to be low-key as a boss. It actually seems as if he puts himself out there without insulation. There's a picture of him in a park meeting with made members. It seems he puts himself out there and meets with multiple guys who don't have positions. Why do such a thing? How can this be beneficial? And why would he, as an acting boss, do such a thing? To begin with, Mikey's a hands-on boss. As far as the meeting in the park, obviously there was an urgent issue or issues that needed to be discussed. So the administration, unable to speak on phones, had to pick a place to meet, regardless of surveillance. A boss or acting boss does meet with members who don't have positions. Matty Madonna spent a great deal of time with an associate of both the Lucchese and Genovese families. One of the last Christmas parties I attended, Mikey and I sat together, and I told him at the time that it was honorable he was out meeting with the family, but he needed to start remaining in the shadows. Do you think John Staluppi's fleet of mega yachts and massive car collection are funded by illegal rackets or legitimate businesses? Same with John Rosati, who owns the largest mansion in Brooklyn. They both have a massive amount of income to afford anything they want and don't have to depend on any criminal rackets. If Neil Dellacroce was still alive and John Gotti hit Paul and did so behind Neil's back, do you think Neil would have taken John out? Would Neil be made the boss or John? I don't believe Gotti would ever go behind Dellacroce's back, hence why he waited until Dellacroce passed until he made his move. Hypothetically, if Castellano was killed, Dellacroce would be the boss. If there was one thing you could say to John DeRoss, what would it be and why? I would say only one thing. That greed equates to prison, which is self-explanatory. Please remember to like this video if you haven't already. And for anyone who wants to show their appreciation for videos like this, or help keep this podcast going, you can do so by the Super Thanks icon down below, or the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. Was Vincent Rayo of the Lucchese family related to the family who owns the restaurant Rayo's in East Harlem? I'm not 100% positive, but I think the former Lucchese consigliere, Vincent Rayo, although having the same last name as the restaurant owners, was not related to them. And for the final question, would you have stayed in a life if your former friends would have never turned on you? I wish my answer would be no, but in full transparency, I cut my ties as a direct result of those betrayals. So if they never transpired, I would have remained being what I was, a loyal, dedicated soldier. However, as I speak of this at this point in time, it only confirms my belief that everything good, or what we may perceive to be bad, happens for a reason.